William Binney.
Yes.
You're an amazing individual. You were a former U.S. intelligence officer turned whistleblower. Can you tell us some of your duties and roles as a U.S. intelligence officer?
Well, I worked for the NSA for 32 years as a civilian, and 3.5 years in the military. So, I mean, it's the NSA CSS, Combined Security Service, which means the Army, Navy, Air Force components of SIGINT. So it's the NSA CSS, it's a combined effort. So that's the SIGINT intelligence area, and so I was in there for close to 37 years, as a part of either in the military or a government employee. But then after that, I worked for another 6 years as a consultant, basically. So I had a little over 40 years in the intelligence business. What I did when I was in NSA was primarily, and even the Army when I was in, was to work on breaking codes and doing work on ciphers and data systems, and looking at how to analyze information as a general rule. So that led to a lot of insight into the ability of how you can use information to derive intelligence about what people were doing or about to do. So the idea was to predict intentions and capabilities of potential enemies, so that you could advise leadership of their intentions, and also how much capacity they had to execute their intentions, so that leadership here in the country could, and in the free world really, could judge on what they wanted to do to perhaps prevent or stop any of that, any of the intentions being executed by their potential enemies. So that was the idea of intelligence. That's what intelligence is supposed to do: predict intentions and capabilities, not forensics. Right now we have intelligence agencies that do forensics. Like after the Boston bombings, here's what information we had on these people. That's a police operation. That's forensics activity. After the crime's committed, they go in and investigate. Intelligence is supposed to be able to investigate and find out and discover intentions and capabilities of potential enemies, and advise leadership of that in advance before it happens. Now, that was the business I was in.
And now we know for a fact, because on MSNBC, an FBI agent came out and said that we could actually listen to the phone calls that were made with the Boston bombing suspects, after they were made. So we know all that is happening right now. But when you were working there at the NSA, what did you uncover, and what made you whistleblow?
I started out, well, first of all, the position I was in when I started to deal with the internet and ballooning digital communications in the world was, I was the technical director of the World Geopolitical Military Analysis and Reporting Group, which is about 6,000 analysts. They were the ones who were producing the intelligence for most of the government. And so I basically was supposed to look at the world and see what had to be done. Well, at that time in the mid-'90s, the explosion in the digital world had started already in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. It started to grow and then explode. And so I saw that, and as did a few others, as the main issue for us to deal in terms of producing intelligence in the world. So my point was that even at the time, just the minimum abilities that we had to collect information for our analysts to look at, even at that time, was still overburdening them with a lot of information that they couldn't get through. And that was only taking in maybe 0.1% of what was there. Wow. So the real problem became, how can you go into this vast communication system that is exploding, pull out data that was relevant to targets that you wanted to do analysis on for reporting of intentions and capabilities of true potential enemies, and advise the leadership of this country about that, and do it in such a way that all that content was in the world was being managed. You could manage it, and you could make it possible for your analysts to be effective at looking at that information. So that was kind of the problem. So what I did was devise a way of being able to look into the data without actually looking at the data, so that I could then look at vast amounts of information and only pull out what was relevant.
The most important stuff.
Right, exactly. Things that were relevant to terrorism or dope smuggling or any kind of international crime or military threats or things like that. So it was how to do that, and that's what I devised in terms of a program. So I had that program running, and then 9/11, and it was opposed because there was another program that the government wanted to start that was going to cost billions of dollars. This one only cost millions. That didn't spend enough money. So they wanted the big program, so they scrapped what was actually running at the time. So
was the big one trying to collect everything that was going in and out digitally?
No, they didn't have that as an objective. As far as I know, they simply wanted to be able to put together a program that could address the volume, velocity, and variety. I didn't know that they wanted to collect anything. At least I don't think everything. At least I don't think they've decided to do that at that time.
Yeah.
But then when they looked at the program we had, they took bits and pieces of it because after 9/11, because that was the programs we did allowed them to deal with massive volumes. And nothing else existed at the time to do that. So that's what they used to spy on everybody.
Wow.
So, and when I saw that happening in October of 2001, that was the first thing I said is I cannot be around here because I can't be associated with what they're doing. It's a direct violation of the Constitution because, first of all, they try to get everything starting with U.S. citizens.
Wow.
Their charter was to do foreign intelligence. Now they're starting the main objective for bulk acquisition is domestic.
Wow. So they're trying to get all the digital communications of all Americans.
That's right.
Wow.
Yep.
And that's when you decided to whistleblow and leave.
Well, internally in the government, I started whistleblowing, and I left NSA as fast as I could. It took me 2.5 weeks to get out.
Did you go through the chain of command?
No, because I was only 3 levels down from the director.
Wow.
So I knew the chain of command already had made this decision, and I knew it had to come from the White House, so there was no point. Talking to them was pointless. I had to go to the intelligence committees first, which is where I went, because their charter and their entire existence, they were created to make sure that the NSA did not spy on U.S. citizens. That was the reason they were created, along with the FISA court. As a result of the Church Committee investigations into those programs in the mid-'70s. Then they produced the FISA Act in 1978, and from there they created the intelligence committees and the courts, and they were to monitor and make sure, do oversight of the intelligence community agencies to make sure they did not spy on U.S. citizens, which is kind of the reverse. Now they're the advocates for them spying on U.S. citizens, not those who are preventing it.
Yeah.
So
meanwhile, they're being spied on as well.
Oh, absolutely. The bulk acquisition took everybody. Everybody's involved. If you make a phone call, if you send an email, if you chatter on the line, everything's involved.
Wow.
And it's all there, and no one is thrown out. It's all stored. Now, you may not be targeted, and by targeting, that means they simply put your attributes in, go into these databases where they have all the storage, and pull out all the information on you.
Wow. And then put a file on you.
They already have a file on you, okay?
Yeah.
It's a matter of looking at it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Wow. And just like Russ also explained later, he told me that they had files on Barack Obama in 2004 with every single communication that he went through, and also Petraeus before he became into that major position of power in the CIA.
Yeah, this bulk acquisition all started in October of 2001.
Wow. So when you went to try to whistleblow officially within the government, what was their response? What reaction did you get from them?
Well, I got a positive reaction from the senior staffer on the HPSI committee overseeing the NSA account, but that's as far as that went, because Nancy Pelosi and Chairman Goss, Nancy was the ranking member at the time of the House Intelligence Committee, they both agreed to these programs. They already agreed with the administration in October 2001 to these programs.
Wow.
But the government was keeping, the White House was keeping this under a classification of a covert program. Now what that meant was, and the reason they were doing it is they wanted to limit Congress's view into it.
Wow.
Well, because it's a violation of the constitutional rights of every U.S. citizen.
And they have no oversight over it at all.
There's no oversight at all. No, at this point, only the the chair and ranking members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees were briefed. That's 4 Congress members. Wow. And they were all sworn to secrecy. Like, for example, Rockefeller, when he was briefed, he said, gee, I don't know what to think of this, but it sure sounds like Poindexter's TIA program, which is the Total Information Awareness Program. That's exactly what it is, okay? Yeah. Now, they started first with metadata on the telephone system, which was provided by the telecom companies. And so that was like 3 billion records of U.S. communications every day. That's what was coming in initially. And then in 2002 and into early 2003, that's when they were deploying these NSA rooms to the different facilities, the telecoms inside the United States. Wow. That's one of the cases of that is in the San Francisco AT&T building, where Mark Klein provided court documentation on that room and the facilities and how it worked and how they duplicated the fiber lines and sent a duplicate version of that into the NSA room for the NARIS device to do the automated reconstruction of the information on the line and then ship that off to NSA for storage.
Yeah, that's insane. That every single last communication, every single last action, including GPS data, it's all sent there in there. So you got a positive reaction, but what happened next? Because I know it gets very turbulent soon.
Yeah. Well, what happened was Nancy Pelosi and Porter Goss, Chairman Goss, was the one who told the staffer to go talk to General Hayden out at NSA. And so she went to talk to General Hayden at NSA, and he basically said, well, this is all legal now. The White House has agreed to it, and we've talked to the 3 parts of government, which meant he only talked to the ranking member or the ranking judge on the FISA court and the 4 members of the Congress. That was it. Okay? So that made to him, that was the justification of having all 3 parts of Congress. Well, the FISA court doesn't have any. It's not an Article 3 court. It's a Article 2 court, which means it's a court within the administration. It hears only administration side. It only hears the government. There's no controversy, no conflict, no advocate for the other side. So it can't be considered an Article 3 court. That's the justification for an Article 3 court. They have to resolve controversy between parties. Okay, so they make judgments in that case. There's no judgment here. They just say, okay, you go ahead and do it. Well, that's all within the Article 2, the executive area. So it's not an Article 3 court. Yeah. So there's not all 3 parts. So they're not following. They're not doing their job, and they're not doing oversight with Article 3 courts. So they're out of courts.
Oversight is impossible. Right. There's no way with especially a secret program that they're keeping away from everybody.
That's right. They have absolutely neither the courts nor the intelligence committees have any way of verifying what NSA, CIA, or FBI tell them. I mean, over and over again, they discover areas where the FBI has misled them on warrants, areas where NSA is violating even the rules that the court put down for them. Wow. And they have yet to do anything about it except say, don't do that. Well, there has to be some accountability here, and there isn't any in this entire process.
So what was your next step when there's really no option for accountability? What was the next step you did?
Well, we attempted to talk to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Article 3 land. Okay, so, and that didn't work because it couldn't get there. Then we talked to the Department of Justice Inspector General, and that went nowhere because they were a part of this. Okay, they were the ones who were the OLC was the one who was saying this is legal. And they're writing up the justification under you wrote the initial justification, and they kept renewing this thing every 45 days. This was before it was exposed. Then after that, it turns to 90 days. So at that point, us going around like that finally raised the level of our visibility to NSA and the FBI and the DOJ, saying we better stop these people. So they sent simultaneously FBI groups of about 10 to 12 agents to all of our homes. That was Kirk Weavy's, Ed Loomis, not Tom Drake, but Diane Rourke and my home, and they raided us. Wow. And then that was in July of 2007. And then after that, the DOJ, in various points up through 2009, attempted to indict us by fabricating evidence at least 3 times to try to get us. And each time I'd find exculpatory data or even evidence of malicious prosecution, which the last time that's that's what I was preparing to charge the government with, malicious prosecution, which in court, if they came with that indictment, which they said they were going to do, but they never did, because I got information to them that I was preparing to charge them with malicious prosecution, and I had the evidence for it. So they immediately dropped it. Okay, a month later, they gave us letters of immunity and said, come in and talk to us again. And our lawyer said, well, why don't you should do this so that we'll end the issue and all that. So we did that. But at that point, this was into 2010 now. At that point, I had pretty much resolved that I had to do something publicly, because this was all evidence that our entire government was so corrupt. I mean, when the Department of Justice fabricates evidence, I mean, that's a felony. Framing somebody and then trying to indict them, that's a felony.
Yeah.
They should be in jail, right? And so should the people who violated the Constitution and any number of other laws.
Exactly. They should be held responsible, and they're just same
Exactly.
kind of as everybody else is, but they're not. But about this raid, I mean, can you tell us more about this? I mean, how many officers were they? Was it like a full military SWAT raid? Oh, yeah. Can you tell us more details about that and how they treated you? Because you're going through the official chain of command. You're trying to handle this internally. You're not going. You didn't do what Edward Snowden did. You're trying to do this, and that's the argument against Edward Snowden now, is that he should have officially whistleblowed and went through the proper channels. You were going through the proper channels, and they raided you by the FBI. Yeah. That's insane. That makes no sense at all.
Well, actually, those people are saying that from the intelligence committees and the Department of Justice and all that. They know that's a lie. Okay, they know that official channels will turn you in and they'll suppress you or step on you,
and then raid your home.
And then raid your home. Yeah. Like for me, they sent. I think it was about 12 agents, and they all came in with guns drawn and armored vests on, right? Bulletproof vests, as if I was going to resist, you know. So I guess for them, I don't know why they felt they had to do that, but they did. So, and they pointed guns at me, you know, and things like that. And I was in the shower at the time, so, you know. The only thing I asked them, I said, could I possibly get some clothes on here? You know, that's the only thing I said. So.
Well, you definitely scared the crap out of them. You know, for them to do this just proves how hypocritical and how unjustified the system is.
Was he blackmailed? I don't know the answer to that, but I you know,
we can only speculate at this time.
I can only say, you know, what is the justification for basically Barack Obama turning against his supposed love for our Constitution?
It's like mine, and software that is published and bought and downloaded, and technology